Stories from 3 Simple Steps is an interview series based on the book 3 Simple Steps by New York Times best-selling author Trevor Blake. This video series is produced and hosted by Allison Phillips, a fellow 3 Simple Steps reader and the creator of storiesfrom3simplesteps.com. In this interview series, readers volunteered to share their experiences of how the powerful daily practices in the book 3 Simple Steps have positively affected and in some cases radically changed their careers, their businesses, and their lives. Wherever in the world you are, we hope that this story inspires you to create an even better life experience and a greater positive impact in this world.
Hey everybody, it's Allison Phillips here, and I am sharing my own 3 Simple Steps story in this video. And I have my questions that I typically ask people when I am interviewing them with some of my notes on it so I don't forget anything. So I wanted to share my story with you guys, and hopefully it'll be inspiring, encouraging, uplifting to those of you who are on the 3 Simple Steps journey. And it's a journey to really just creating a better life for yourself. So I have plenty to share, even though my journey has only been short. So I'll get started with the first question, which is, how did I hear about 3 Simple Steps? I was actually listening to a radio show on Law of Attraction Radio Network, the Think, Believe, and Manifest radio show by Constance Arnold, who is now a dear friend of mine who I have lunch with every single month, and she and I are pretty close friends now. And I heard her interview Trevor on her show, and while she was interviewing Trevor, I got on Amazon and got the book. So that's how fast it was for me in terms of responding to what I heard. So that's, and how long ago was that? That was, I believe, September, somewhere around September, October of 2000, I want to say September of 2013. So I have been using and implementing 3 Simple Steps since then. At the time of recording this video, it is, where are we? March of 2014. So, so that's my answer to that question. The other question is, have I read other books like 3 Simple Steps, and how was 3 Simple Steps different? Yes, I read Think and Grow Rich, Science of Getting Rich. I watched The Secret movie. Lots of other things along those lines I have been reading and implementing for quite some time now. I would say probably 3, maybe 4 years. What was different about 3 Simple Steps for me was what's in the title, simplicity, right? I learned about 2 years ago when I was being mentored through one of my mentors. I went through this powerful exercise to discover what my values in life were. And a very prominent value for me was simplicity. So anything that's overly complicated, has too many moving parts, I don't stick with it very long. Trevor's book, 3 Simple Steps, was precisely that. It was very simple and very easy to implement. What was also different about Trevor's book was just a lot of very personal stories about how he arrived at the principles that he was sharing in the book. And I remember a lot of those stories, and I actually recall them when I'm in certain situations as well. So I think the power of storytelling was powerful for a pretty significant difference that I saw in the book. And also just the overall simplicity of it as well. What was most enlightening for me in reading 3 Simple Steps, perhaps the thing that hit me, that struck me the most, or had the greatest impact on how faithfully I did this, is toward the end of the book, Trevor was talking about how disciplined we need to be when we're practicing, when we're in a practice like this, like 3 Simple Steps. And what I realized when I read that was, because I'm such a seeker, of personal growth stuff, I'm seeking and listening to stuff all the time. I read probably 1 or 2 books a week because I do audiobooks a lot. And so I read a lot, and I'm always looking for more. I'm watching videos, I'm downloading stuff, I'm buying books, and you name it. I mean, on my nightstand right now, there's probably about 4 different books that I'm reading right now. But what I realized was, in my quest for seeking, a lot of personal growth stuff, I never stuck with any one thing as it was prescribed for very long, because, you know, another author would come along and I'd read something and go, ooh, you know, I should do it that way. Or, you know, another practice would come along and I'd go, ooh, let me merge that with this, or let me add this, or let me tweak this. And I never really stuck with any one practice for very long at all. So for me, that was a very enlightening part of the book, is that I realized I need to stick with something. And these 3 simple steps is something that I could very easily stick with, because they're very simple and they're very easy, and gosh, you know, it's only 3 steps. So I decided that for the entirety of 2014, I will faithfully implement the practice of 3 simple steps. And so that was pretty enlightening for me. Another enlightening thing for me was when Trevor was talking about the mentality shield. And in a certain part of the book, he talked about the glass jar coming down, you know, imagining the glass jar coming down and being your mentality shield for the day. And I don't know what it is about that imagery. Like when you have that imagery in the morning, I do it when I'm having my quiet time. It's just imagining that I'm beginning the day and there's awesome thick glass jars coming around me, and therefore all the negativity in the world is just bouncing off the glass jar all through the day. And so that mental imagery was, that was pretty enlightening for me as well. The stories were very enlightening. There were a lot of personal stories about Trevor's mom, his childhood, things he went through, what kind of put him on this path of learning and practicing what he does. I remember those stories. I really remember the stories a lot. And my 11-year-old son was listening to the book in the car with me a lot when I read the book probably 9 times in the course of a couple of months or something like that. And I still go back and listen to different pieces off and on as well. But the stories were pretty powerful for me as well. So those were the key things that I would say I found most enlightening about the book, aside from the fact that it's pretty darn simple to implement as well. What was it like implementing the 3 steps overall? I think for me, it was easy, right? Because it's really only 3 simple steps. And I did not have, the first step is mentality control, and I did not have a hard time with that at all. I had already started, first of all, I'm a homebody, so I don't go out a whole lot, you know, and I am self-employed, so I'm working by myself every single day. And I don't have a whole lot of meetings to attend, or people are complaining, you know, doing all that. And I also stopped reading the news probably, or watching the news, and I watch very little TV, if any at all, during the week. Probably for the last 3 years, maybe going on 4 years now, I made that decision. So there wasn't a lot of, you know, shifts that I had to make with regard to mentality control for me. So overall, the simplicity of the other 2 steps, which is quiet time and writing my intentions every day, were pretty simple. You know, so overall, I would say what I experienced overall was a tremendous level of peace when I started implementing the steps. Because I kind of fully embraced the discipline of it all, even though I had been meditating, it had been very much off and on. You know, when I can find the time, you know, if I'm having a stressful day, maybe I'll go meditate. And so overall, I think I really stuck with the practice of quiet time, which I'll get to in a second, and the impact it had on me. But overall, I would say peace, serenity, simplicity, and for me, it was quickly experiencing moments of insight as well. Like within 2 weeks of reading the book, I had profound moments of insight, and I'll share some of those as well. But that's my overall take on reading the book, and of course I'll share more specifics as we go along. So my experience with mastering my mentality. As I mentioned before, that wasn't a huge thing for me, because I had done a lot of practice with getting, you know, not watching the news, and, you know, there wasn't a whole lot of negativity that I had to deal with. Also, I had already begun the practice of, from another author, I guess, I had already begun the practice of becoming the observer of my thoughts, and that was a pretty powerful practice for me, in addition to the suggestions that Trevor gave in the book around your mentality shield. I enjoyed the practice that Trevor shared in his book of, you know, when something happens, you can like replace it with imagery. I think there was a part in the book where he shared the story of, being in the airport where flights are canceled and everybody's freaking out and, being all mad, and he would close his eyes and just go to his private island, which is part of his intentions, So I enjoyed embracing that aspect of it as well. But I had already been practicing becoming an observer of my thoughts from the book, what was the name of the book? The Untethered Soul. And that practice was really profound for me, with just finding a new level of peace and serenity in my life. And for me, that practice kind of looked like, if any thoughts entered my mind that threatened to kind of pull me down into a negative place, I would simply observe those thoughts. I'd become the observer of my thoughts, because I recognized that I'm a deeply spiritual person. So I recognized that through that practice, I recognized that my soul and my spirit is very completely different than the thoughts in my mind. And so that regular practice allowed me to become very conscious of the thoughts that are going crazy in my mind all the time, and recognizing that those are just thoughts, and I could just watch them come in and watch them leave, and I don't have to hold on to the thoughts that are emerging in my mind. So that practice had already begun to put me in a pretty darn peaceful state. So there wasn't a lot of changes that I needed to make around my mentality, although there's some stuff that came up when I was writing my intentions, or where I had to make some mindset shifts to address some of those things, and I'll share those later. But overall, my practice of mentality shield, that whole shield's coming down over you, I love doing that. One of the important things actually that I got out of Trevor's book was to not be against things, but before things. That was good. That was a shift for me. I didn't realize how much I was walking around being against the things that I didn't agree with. And instead of being just wholeheartedly for the things that I embraced and experienced in life, I didn't realize how much of a shift I needed to make there. So that was pretty cool too, in terms of mentality shield. So that's my overall experience with step 1, which was mentality. The other thing was just the practice of seeing everything that happens in life simply as events, not huge disturbances. You know what I mean? It's like when things don't go the way you expect them to go, we have the tendency to go, oh my gosh, freak out, And what I learned and really fully embraced is that you can do whatever you need to do without the freak out. I had already started to embrace that all of those emotions, anger, fear, anxiety, self-doubt, jealousy, second guessing yourself, all those different things were just thoughts, and they were triggered by past experiences or filters we have in our lives or whatever. And I realized that even though something can trigger anger inside of me, or trigger jealousy, or trigger envy, or trigger fear, because gosh, we human beings just walk around in so much fear. We live in fear. Okay, our decisions are made out of fear. Our actions are taken out of fear. And that awareness, that heightened awareness for me, that I had already started to practice, was pretty darn significant for me in really embracing the whole concept of mentality shield. And so what I realized and fully embrace is that I can have any number of experiences in life that can go the way that I expected them to go, or not go the way they expected them to go, and I get to choose my response to those things. And even though the thoughts would come up in my mind, I'm no different than any other human being, the thoughts would still come up in my mind, thoughts of fear, thoughts of anger, thoughts of anxiety, all these different things, but I can nip it in the bud within seconds and not have it linger inside of me, inside of my own energy. I can totally reverse that energy and be in a very amazing place of peace. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But so that was huge for me. So now when things happen, it's what I say to myself is oh, that's another life event. You know, that's another life event. Okay, so are there any actions that I need to take with regard to that life event? And I skip the drama. Like, you don't have to go through drama in order to take the action, you know? And sometimes we feel like, well, I have to get angry because that's what's spurring me into action. Yeah, okay. You can take that path, or you can just take the action that you need to take and not go through the drama and not go through the freak out. You know what I mean? And I fully embraced that. Boy, I tell you, if I could, and I will, if I could bottle up and teach people what I went through to get to this place of just amazing level of peace, boy, there's so much passion in me for sharing a lot about that, because I think we go through and experience so much drama in life because we don't have a process for living in what I now call, this came from the Bible actually, but I call it the peace that passes all understanding. I'll share a little bit about that with regard to intentions in a second. But that's my overall view of where, what my experiences have been with regard to mentality, the mentality shield, and being a master of my mentality through the process of practicing 3 simple steps. So my experience with quiet time has been nothing short of amazing. I think initially it was, too much chatter in my brain. Like, it was just so much noise. I do agree with Trevor that it's better to do quiet time first thing in the morning, because I found that if I miss it first thing in the morning, it's even harder to quiet my brain down later on in the day. Sometimes I've done it like just before I went to bed, but I think I checked in with Trevor once and he said, well, you might wake up with ideas in the middle of the night, which hasn't happened for me, but it's very rare that I ever do it at the end of the day. But your brain is a whole lot quieter first thing in the morning. So I have, for the most part, done it somewhere between, usually it's the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning. I would say 90% of the time, it's the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning, which is I give myself 2.5 to 3 hours in the early part of the morning for feeding me, feeding my spirit, feeding my mindset. So I'm up 5:30 to 6:30 in the morning. I do my quiet time the very first thing. I also agree with Trevor, don't check your phone, okay? Or your cell phone, or to see if you got text messages or your calendar or your email. Do not do that before quiet time. And I'm so glad he shared that, because, I'm not, when I wake up in the morning, I'm not typically checking email or anything like that, but I do check my text messages, or I check the weather, with the weather app. And I have found that if I just wake up, go to my quiet spot, and do my quiet time, there's no distractions, nothing else. My brain is just now awakening, and it's the perfect time to do quiet time. So those are some transitions that I went through. Initially, my brain was just going chatter, right? But along the same time, I had begun practicing that principle of becoming the observer of my thoughts, meaning if thoughts enter my mind, if I simply slip into the observer mode where I'm just observing my thoughts, I have found that the thoughts diffuse or dissipate. So it hasn't been that difficult to get rid of the thoughts when they emerge. And when I say get rid of them, it's not like absolute, well, I do kind of enter this thoughtless space. And I'm not entirely sure if it's thoughtless. I don't know the science behind it, but I feel like I'm not having any thoughts. But for me, what has happened more recently, the more I began to practice the principle of becoming the observer of my thoughts, which is really like, if I'm thinking about something right now, I pause and I go, what am I thinking about? And I become very present. And the minute I become very present to what I'm thinking about, it's like I'm seeing myself in a 360-degree angle, right? I can see all of me and I can see what I'm thinking. And I become the observer of the thought that's passing through my mind. And for me, the minute I become the observer of the thought that's crossing through my mind, the thought itself diffuses and dissipates. So if I am in my quiet time and thoughts are trying to parade through my mind, I can very easily become the observer of my thoughts, and then whoosh, it disappears. So because that has been a daily moment-to-moment practice of mine, and I'll share how powerful that has become in a second. But because that particular practice has been a practice of mine, it contributed to me being able to diffuse the distraction of thought during quiet time. And I can very quickly now, like I can sit in my quiet time and boom, go into the space, the silence, the quiet, very, very quickly now. It didn't start out that way, though. It took practice and it took patience. The cool thing, I think, about Trevor's book, 3 Simple Steps, is that he gave me permission to have those distractions and continue anyway. And I think if he didn't say that, I might have become much more frustrated. I might have been beating myself up for not being quiet, for my mind not being still enough. But I'm thankful to Trevor for saying, even if thoughts cross your mind, keep with it anyway. And I did, and because of the repetition of it, I don't have a lot of chatter coming into my mind much at all anymore. And even when it does, I have this practice of becoming the observer of my thoughts, and they dissipate very quickly for me. And I can very easily go straight into the silence and that thoughtless space that's, for me, it's like, it's almost this weightless feeling that I feel when I am in that silence of meditating. And I also come out of it feeling an immense level of calmness and serenity. And that's one of the things that I noticed about practicing quiet time so consistently, is that not only do you come out of it with that calm and serenity, I have found that calmness and serenity permeates my day and has become a profound sense of peacefulness to me. And I have, suggested this book and in many occasions given this book to my clients, and they have reported back the same things. Like, all of a sudden I'm like walking through the day and things don't seem so bad anymore, and things don't seem, I don't get upset anymore. I don't I don't get as upset. Things don't upset me as much anymore. And even when I do get upset, it seems rather diffused, and my clients have started to report that back to me as well. So that has been my experience, and also has been the experience of my clients with regard to quiet time. One of the unexpected blessings of quiet time for me, and I started to notice this, and I remember sending Trevor a note about this. You know how some people talk about subconscious beliefs? It's like beliefs that you don't know you have, and filters that you don't know you have. And, a lot of times people say, I have to go work on my subconscious beliefs, and it's this separate whole nother practice they have to go through to get rid of their negative self-conscious beliefs. What I found with quiet time and the process of writing intentions, the combination of those two things somehow rewired my brain. There are things that I can point to that I knew were very deeply rooted subconscious beliefs. But whenever I wrote in my intentions, it definitely, that and quiet time, so it's intentions and quiet time, I have experienced a rewiring of my thinking and a rewiring of my brain, because there are things that I would think about in a certain way, which I can't even think that way anymore. And so for me, the combination of quiet time and intention writing obliterated many subconscious beliefs that at times in past have held me back. I can't even explain why that is. I'm sure there's a scientific reason for, the quiet time and the intention writing. I'm sure there's some scientific reason why that is, but I just wanted to share that if you're, I don't know if it'll work for you the way it has worked for me, but for me, subconscious beliefs have become a thing of the past. And I noticed the absence of them. rather than the presence of them, I noticed the absence. You know how things are holding you back, and it's deeply rooted. It's internal. It's not like as evident as, other things. And I have noticed the absence of that, that sensation of something's holding me back and I don't know why it is, and I don't know what it is. And those tend to be subconscious beliefs. And I just have, for me, in my experience with 3 Simple Steps, is that it somehow obliterated those subconscious beliefs. And maybe I have more to be obliterated. I don't know. But that's been my experience with quiet time. Those have been the experiences that I have had with quiet time. Connecting with nature has been a really interesting experience for me. Perhaps one of the most profound experiences I've had as a result of reading Three Simple Steps. I could very confidently say that Three Simple Steps and reading Three Simple Steps is the reason why I'm having such an amazing connection with nature now. I think it started out, when I was reading Trevor's book, there were places in his book where he talked about, you know, how he was as a child and this whole experience of when he's out in nature, he did better at school and he had this amazing connection with nature and, you know, strange things started happening that he dare not tell anybody. And as I was reading the book, I remember thinking, well, what is that? You know, it's like, I've never heard of that. I've never experienced that. I was like, well, let me go check out this nature thing and see, you know, if something might happen to me. I don't know. And so I decided to go. Trevor recommends in the book going out once a week. I decided I'm self-employed. I have the flexibility to go out in nature every day, so I'm going to do that. And I started dropping my son off to school in the morning. And right after dropping him off to school, I would stop by this really big park that's not too far from my house. And I'd go walking in nature. Initially, so my experience with this connection with nature has been this. Initially, I was walking around with my iPhone and, you know, stuff, my earplugs, right, my earbuds in my ears, listening to something inspirational. And I thought that was pretty cool, you know, walking through nature, listening to something inspirational. And then I realized that if I'm listening to something inspirational, I'm actually not fully present, you know? And I realized, okay, so I want to be fully present in nature, or maybe I'll miss something, you know? And so for whatever reason, I decided, okay, I'm just going to be fully present. I'm going to put away my iPhone. I'm going to stop listening to stuff, and I'm just going to be fully present as I'm walking out in nature. And for me, it's been, I don't know, 30 minutes, some days an hour, some days an hour and a half. You know, I have the luxury of doing that, so I am enjoying it fully right now. So that shift to being fully present was quite a shift. For me, what started to happen probably, and maybe it's happening this quickly because I'm doing it every day, but what started to happen for me is, first, initially, I would walk out in nature, and for some reason, I go back to my car, and it almost felt like I was floating on air. It felt almost like an extension of my quiet time, and created even more peace and serenity in my day. I mean, I literally at times left the park feeling like I'm on this natural high, you know, and I can't explain it any other way, but there's just this feeling of serenity. And I've had some of my clients report back too, like you start to notice the leaves and the trees and the colors of the leaves, or, you know, you all of a sudden your awareness has been sharpened in some way. And so I started to experience that. And then I started to experience what I call getting plugged in, right? I would go out in nature and okay, this is going to be a little weird, okay? Fair warning. It's going to be a little weird. And I don't know if some of you have experienced this as well. If you have, I'd love to hear your feedback on it. But for me, I tried to explain this to my husband, and he's like, say what? You know, for me, initially I started walking on the path in the park near me. And then I started feeling like I just want to be on the grass. I want to be on the grass. I don't want to be on the concrete path. And so I started walking on the grass. And then all of a sudden, one morning, as I stepped onto the grass that morning to just do my normal walk, I started feeling this sensation in my legs. I kid you not. I don't know why. Maybe there's some scientific reason for it. I don't know. But I call it plugging in now. And I would walk onto the grass, and it happens every day now which is totally fine with me. But initially, it's like I step onto the grass and I feel this sensation in my legs, and then this sensation in my arms and my hands. And gosh, can I describe what that sensation feels like? One time I was driving with my husband, I was trying to explain it, and I said, you know that feeling you get when you're in an airplane and it's got like a little bit of turbulence and you kind of dip suddenly and you feel that zing through your body, right? It's kind of like that. I don't know any other way to describe it, but it's kind of like that, okay? And that sensation got stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger, okay? Not unbearable in any way, but it kind of lifted me. It increased my sense of peacefulness, stillness, just this plugged-in connection to nature. Oftentimes I describe it to friends of mine of, like I feel like I'm walking inside of a prayer. I feel so connected to God and so connected to the creator of this universe when I'm out there. So connected to the point where I started asking for answers to things while I'm walking, because I feel that connection so strongly to God and to the creator of this universe. And I just started like feeling like I could ask questions and get answers, and I have. And it's just been amazing to me. Even in my quiet time, to go back to that for a little bit, I would at times, because of the amazing level of peace and somewhat connection to the spirit within me, I would ask questions, and then I would go into that, after my quiet time, I would just sit still and listen for answers, And so a little bit of that started happening out in nature as well, is when the more I felt connected, the more I felt plugged in, the more questions emerged within me. And I'm a questioner anyway. I just love to ask questions. And so anything that I felt like I didn't have the answer to, that plugged in feeling would somehow gently prompt me to ask those questions. And I would somehow feel the answers in the energy field out there, the spirit within me, whatever. I mean, I don't even have words to describe it. At times I feel like it's inexplicable. I often describe it to my husband as, feeling engulfed in the unconditional love of God. I feel that as well when I'm out in nature as well. Another freaky thing I'll add to the mix. When I started to feel this overwhelming sense of the unconditional love of God out in nature, and started to feel that plugged in sensation, that, that feeling like I can ask anything and with love receive the answer. And whenever I felt that just overwhelming sense of the unconditional love of God, something strange started to happen. Tears started flowing out of my eyes. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel like I was crying over anything in particular. I just felt what I describe as the overwhelming sense of the presence of God, and also coupled with an unconditional, this sensation of just unconditional love and acceptance, and I'm here for you. It's just this powerful energy of the universe and the energy of just being out in the purity of nature just completely feeds me. It just feeds me. And I can't explain that in any way. And I have to attribute all thanks to Trevor's book, because it's his book that really prompted me to be curious enough to go out in nature and see what it offered, And I think I do it often enough. I do it every single day. So I think that sensation of, that presence, that the energy, the positive energy, the unconditional love, that all that stuff, I think is coming from having experienced it every single day. So it became this compounding effect. And it's just, it is a non-negotiable for me now. It's a total non-negotiable. I have to go out in nature. There may be 1 or 2 times I might miss from my daily, this has become part of my daily practice. And there have been times where I've missed it, but it is definitely a non-negotiable for me now. Being out in nature, to me, is an extension of my quiet time. It's an extension of how I access peace, how I access that stillness, that, access even answers to things. I mean, it's just been profound. I cannot explain anything that I've just said to you. All I know is that that has been my experience. I can't explain it. I have no scientific way to explain it. Maybe Trevor does. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I'm just sharing what my experience has been. And my invitation to those of you who feel like, I don't have time to go walking out in nature. I don't have time, to take, time in nature or whatever. Find the time. Find the time. You are missing out. You are missing out. Let me tell you, you gotta find the time. So that's been my experience out in nature. Let me see if there's anything else that I need to share on that. No, that's pretty much it for my experience with nature. I don't know what's going to happen as I continue to do this for a full year. I don't know. I have no idea what's going to happen. But so far, it's been an amazing experience. Thank you, Trevor Blake, for your introduction. Your book was an introduction to connecting with nature for me. Before reading Trevor's book, I grew up in the Caribbean and have been in the United States for 30 years now. Lord, I came here when I was 19. Don't do the math trying to figure out my age. No. I am turning 49 this year. So I've been over here for 30 years. And for me, connecting with nature meant if I had the opportunity to be on the edge of the ocean, looking out on the horizon, that to me felt like a profound level of serenity and peace, to the point where, yes, I was moved to tears. That's what nature meant to me. And I had never really considered that I could appreciate the trees and I could appreciate nature in the way that I do now, and being fully present to appreciate it. I go walking out in nature no matter what the weather is. I go walking out in nature when it's raining outside, which I love because I end up being like one of two people in the entire park because nobody goes walking out in the rain. But I mean, I literally slush through the slushy grass that's covered in rain. And when I'm walking out in nature, my sense of being fully present, sometimes I'm literally looking down at my feet and appreciating the blades of grass that are growing all on their own with no help. And it reminds me that, geez, if our creator of this universe can nourish the grass and allow it to grow all on its own like that, can he not provide for me? You know what I mean? When sometimes I literally look at the dewdrops on a leaf, I would literally stop and look at a tiny little leaf, at the dewdrops on that leaf, and appreciate that nature did that, that this tree is growing. I look up at the 50-foot tall trees in the park, and I feel like such a little tiny little thing compared to the trees. And I ask myself, those trees didn't ask for its branches to grow. It just grew. It just grew effortlessly. And it's just a constant reminder to me that we're supposed to live in an effortless way. We're not supposed to be struggling and, feeling all these different things. And so for me, my walk in nature is just being very present. I see the squirrels running around and playing with each other, and I'm just there staring and taking it all in. It's a gift to me. It's a gift to me to, oftentimes I'm walking out in nature and the sun is just now rising in the morning, and that's profound for me. I feel the sunlight coming up and just hitting my face, and I feel such immense gratitude for just being there, I look up at the clouds sometimes. Sometimes I see people walking out in the park, and I go, just look up, people, just look up. And I look up and I see the clouds just gently moving across the blue sky, and I'm in awe that this very moment that I'm experiencing will never be repeated. Every morning that I come out, it's a new moment out in nature, and for me, it's profound now. It's just a profound being present moment, I'm not looking at other people walking. I'm not thinking about what my agenda is for the day. I'm not thinking about my to-do list and the project that I'm working on. And my kids and what's happening with my kids and the argument I had with one of them. And I'm not thinking about any of those things. I'm just being fully present. And I think that contributes to how plugged in I feel and the immense positive, overwhelming positive energy that I feel when I'm out in nature now. It's because I choose to be fully present. I'm not listening to anything. I'm not thinking about anything. I'm just there, being fully present to that now moment and appreciating all aspects of what nature is feeding me with, you know. It's just been profound for me. So again, thank you, Trevor, for really giving me that gift. That's been a gift to me. So thank you. So writing intentions has been an interesting experience for me. At first, I started writing my intentions. I love bright colors, and I buy a lot of bright colored paper and Post-it notes and things like that. And I wear bright colors, as you can see. But I started writing my intentions on the front side of a 3.5 by 5 inch index card. And then I got all prolific, and I started writing on the front and the back of a 3.5 by 5 inch index card. And then I ran out of room on that. So I started writing on a half a sheet, kind of like this, right? And on the front only, and I had plenty of space. And then I became even more prolific and colorful in what I wrote. So it ended up being the front and the back of this little half sheet. And then that became not enough. So I created this in my printer, and you can see it says intentions there. Or is it showing up backwards for you? I don't know. But it says intentions on the front and on the back, and it's just lines. And I actually printed this out. And now I write on the front and the back of this every day. Some days I resort to the short version, right? Even though I have this big sheet of paper, I resort to the short version. Because I didn't do it first thing in the morning right after my quiet time. And so I ended up, writing a short version of it at midnight, But I've been pretty consistent with writing my intentions. So in terms of how much I write, that's the transition I went through. Little itty bitty little bit, just one-liners. And then it grew and grew and grew. And for me, I feel like I'm narrating my story. The story of the life that I desire to have. But I went through a massive shift, y'all, with regard to writing intentions that was a huge awakening for me. The cool thing about writing intentions for me is that as I'm writing it, I have this huge smile on my face. Because everything I write, I'm experiencing it. I'm literally experiencing it. It's been that powerful for me. And I think that's why I enjoy it so much. It's like creative writing, and I literally experience everything that I write. And I think that's the power of writing it out each day, is that you re-experience it, There are several ways that I actually re-experience my intentions throughout the day. The first way, of course, is that I write it down, right? Normal writing intentions every single day. The second is that sometimes, very often, after my quiet time, I would literally visualize my intentions in my mind for about 3 minutes. Just visualizing all the things that I typically write in my intention. So I re-experience it that way as well. A third way that I experience my intentions is by sometimes when I'm walking out in nature, I would speak my intentions audibly out loud. Okay, so that's another way that I experience my intentions every single day. Another thing that I started to do was writing. I have a once an hour on the hour. I use my iPhone for this, and I use the alarm feature. So there's an alarm that goes off every hour on the hour. And each hour is a different intention. And I write it in code so nobody can know what it is. So I write like abbreviated things, and my 11-year-old son always goes, "What does that mean?" But I know what it means. And so when it goes off during the day on the hour, and it goes off with this beautiful chime that I set it to, and I look at it And for about 30 seconds, if I can, because sometimes I'm in a meeting or, talking to a client or whatever and I can't do it. But I would literally look at it and close my eyes for about 30 seconds and put myself there in that intention. And that reminder throughout the day keeps me so tuned in to my intentions that I could recall it in a minute, in a millisecond. Another way that I experience my intentions, and I used to do this, I've been doing this for probably 2 years now, so I kind of just integrated it with another way to experience my intentions during the day. I made photographs, like I went to Google Images and I just downloaded photographs that really represented what I was writing in my intentions, right? So I just searched for photos that represented what I was writing in my intentions. And I created this little, I put the photos inside of a PowerPoint presentation, and I printed it out. I took it to one of those little office stores, and I printed it out and spiral bounded it. And so there's another thing that I do sometimes when I'm writing my intentions. I would flip to a photo. And for some reason, that's a visceral experience for me. Like I can see myself in that photo. I could like permeate the photo on the page and just be there, So that's another way that I experience my intentions, is those photos coupled with the writing of my intentions. Like I would get to another intention to write about, and I would flip the page in the book, and the photo would just be a really visceral reminder of exactly what that experience would look like. And there are times when my iPhone alarm would go off, and that exact image would just come straight to my mind because it's a reminder of that particular intention. And another thing that I've done, which I've been doing for 2 or 3 years, is sometimes toward the end of the day, that same PowerPoint thing that I printed out and spiral bound is a little movie. And so I would play that little movie on my iPhone. It's a little I turned it into an MP4 movie using the same software that I used to produce this video. But I would turn it into a little movie, and so I would watch the movie at night. And it would be like a little 5-minute movie of everything that I want to experience in my life. So those are all the ways that I have chosen to experience my intentions every single day. However, my intentions went through a radical awakening. And here's what that radical awakening is. Now, as you guys know, I'm a really deeply spiritual person. For me, life is spiritual. I believe that we are spiritual beings inhabiting human bodies. That's how I believe people to be. Okay? So I'm always on a very, contemplating things in a very deeply spiritual way. Even science to me is spiritual. It's like, I don't see the difference between science and spirituality. It's like all the amazing things we discover in science, that was all created by our amazing creator. You know what I mean? So to me, everything is deeply spiritual. I was going through this, I was writing my intentions one day. And I don't know where this came from, but I suddenly asked myself, I suddenly heard this question come up inside of me. Are these your intentions? What? Yeah, I think these are my intentions, right? But it was a huge awakening for me. They were not my intentions. Or they were, but I'll share with you what the awakening was. I started asking myself, why do you want some of the things that you're writing about? And that was a profound question that created the huge awakening for me. Why are you writing the things that you're writing about for your intentions? And I honestly thought the answer to that would be a no-brainer, like, because these are the things I desire for my life. And it was not. Here's the awakening that I had. I started realizing when I asked myself that question, when that question emerged from inside of me from I don't know where, I think it's just a spiritual thing, I don't know. But I started realizing there were things I was writing in my intentions, and I wanted them. Why did I want them? I wanted them so that I could be perceived as successful. Hello. I wanted them because I wanted other people to perceive me in a certain way. Hello. I wanted them because I wanted, I cared about what other people thought about me. I wanted to have this because other people would think certain things of me if I had these things, right? And oh my gosh, was that a wake-up call? Woo! I was like, girlfriend, I thought you got past that stuff, you know? And I started realizing, other things that I realized is I was writing things in my intentions that I thought I should want. Hello? Not that I really wanted them, it's just that I thought I should want them. Why did I think I should want those things? Well, because other people had those things when they're, 10 times more successful than I am. And so I was writing things for really interesting reasons. And I started realizing some of the things that I was writing was, well, I'm writing this because if I get it, I'll be a lot happier. If I get it, I'll be feel a lot more successful. I'll feel more accomplished. I'll feel all these different things, right? And I was writing things in there that I thought I should want because people who are more successful than me have those things, therefore I should have them when I become even more successful. And boy, was that an awakening for me. That I started going, wait a second, whose intentions are these? Are these mine? Are these things that I really, truly do want? And if I do want them, why? Why do I want them? I didn't like the answers that I heard back from myself. I didn't like those answers. So that created this huge shift for me in what I was writing. I realized that I did not want any physical thing, any material thing to be the source of my joy and my happiness and my peace. And I did not want to live my life getting things in order for the purpose of being perceived in a certain way. Getting things, material things, so that other people would admire me. You know what I mean? Like, whose life is this? You know what I mean? I started really questioning everything that I was writing about and realized that the wake-up call, the awakening for me, when I started realizing all of this, like, do I really want this, or do I just want it because I want other people to see that I have it? You know what I mean? And it's like all these things started coming up, and I'm like, holy Lord, I thought I got past that, And right in that moment, y'all, I think after I had that huge awakening, like the next quiet time I suddenly realized in that moment that what Allison wanted, okay, because stuff I was writing was what other people might want and what I thought other people, what I should want, all these other things. It's like, wait a minute, whose intentions are these? And I started realizing that what Allison Phillips really wants, if I were to be completely 100% authentic, what I wanted after that awakening was I wanted to access such a deep, profound level of peace, joy, and happiness that was completely unattached from anything I could ever own, from any experience that I could ever have. Like, it was always with me. And here's what happened. Everything that I wrote in my intentions from that point onward was toward my desire for that experience. That situations, circumstances, the presence of things, the absence of things had no bearing at all on the joy, the peace, and the happiness I felt inside. I realized what I wanted was internal peace, joy, and happiness, not peace, joy, and happiness triggered by other things, right? And every material thing that I wrote about in my intentions, I threw it all out. Now stay with me, because some of you are going to go, oh, wait, great, so you don't want anything? No, that's not true. I'll share with you what happened, okay? Stay with me. All I wrote about was that I experienced this amazing level of peace, joy, and internal, that peace that passes all understanding, that it's always with me. no matter what happens in life, it's what and I just started writing that out. That was all I wrote about in my intentions, because I realized if I were to be true to myself, that's what I most wanted more than anything else. That's the experience that I wanted to have as a human being on this earth. That's what I really wanted. I wanted that more than anything. I did not want things to create this ebb and flow in the peace, joy, and internal happiness I felt. Here's the cool thing. Talk about manifesting intentions. I got that. Earlier I talked about how all of a sudden, life is just a series of events for me. It's not, when things happen, events happen, even traumatic events have happened where I was able to hold on to the peace that I felt deep inside. And I'm now in the place where I'm going to start sharing how I got here with my clients. And I'm about to release a new program where that process is going to be woven through the entire program, because it is a profound earthly experience. OMG. Or as I say to my friends sometimes, OM freaking G, right? For those of you who don't text, OMG is oh my God, oh man, I am such a vastly different woman, human being, mother, wife, friend than I could ever have imagined myself to be. Talk about intentions being manifested. And it was within a month, because that's all I focused on. That's all I wanted. And so material things were just fun things to have. And so the shift that happened in the writing of my intentions was that all I wrote about was the acquisition of that inner peace that had no attachment to things and material possessions and experiences or things like that, right? And once I felt like, and I started practicing, there's a practice that I developed and practiced it moment to moment throughout the day. And once I got to the place where I feel like, oh shoot, it's like things started happening that I would go into freak out mode over, and I wasn't freaking out anymore. And things that would like greatly disappoint me, the disappointment came and went, disappeared really fast. And that's my experience in life now that I'm getting ready to just pass on to other people. And once I got to that place, then somehow it became okay again for me to write about material things in my intentions. But the difference was, when I wrote about them, it was more like, yeah, this would be a fun experience to have. This would be a fun gadget to own. This would be a fun thing to have. But it wasn't any longer tied to my happiness, my joy, my peace, and my fulfillment in this world. It was completely detached from that. And it was a point of freedom for me in what I wrote about. And material things that I wrote about had an entirely different feeling to it. It was no longer that I wanted this to impress other people, that I wanted this, because I wanted people to think a certain thing about me. You know what I mean? It's like all of that went whoosh out the window. And I had the freedom to once again write about material things, but simply for having fun in life. It's like, it's just fun. And it didn't matter really if they showed up or didn't show up, because every day I'm experiencing like immense levels of joy and peace. And gosh, it is absolutely what the Bible describes as the peace that passes all understanding. And in that step-by-step process that I now use is how I stay there. And no matter what happens, I stay there. And I'm not perfect at it by any means. I'm a human being just like you all are. And I experience everything that you experience. But it comes and goes like this now. Anger, whoop, done, gone. Disappointment, whoop, done, gone. And it's this, it's indescribable to me. And so that has been my experience, my journey through writing my intentions daily, and the transition that I went through and where I am now. So what I'm going to talk about next is some other intentions that have been manifested and have been amazing experiences for me. Okay, so stuff that has happened as a result of writing intentions. Well, the fact that you're watching this video right now is part of a moment of insight. And maybe I'll share some moments of insight there too. I have a little note there reminding me of stuff to not forget to share. Moments of insight started happening for me within 2 weeks of reading 3 Simple Steps. But now that I reflect back, I had this big awakening, as you guys know. Many of you were in the wealthwithoutgoalsetting.com video series where I shared my story. So I had this big awakening spiritually in summer of 2013. And since then, my entire life has changed, just remarkably. I share a whole video on how my life has changed there, so I'm not going to go into that here. But the piece that I wanted to share was I had a moment of insight early one morning that gave birth to my weekly show, my weekly show at thebusinesstransformationshow.com. I had a huge calling to do that. I don't know how long I'm going to be doing it. It's just I do it out of pure inspiration every single week, just pure inspiration. That was the first time I had a moment of insight, but I didn't realize that that's what it was. But after reading Trevor's book, I recognized, oh, that was a moment of insight that I had. That was huge, And then 2 weeks after reading Trevor's book, and I don't even know that I told Trevor this that I'm about to share with you guys, but when I read his book, as I was reading it, I saw like flashes of me interviewing him. And this happens to me, I don't know if it happens to you guys, but I just get these flashes, like a flash of it's like a movie clip that just flashes through my mind, right? Get this flash through my mind of interviewing Trevor Blake. And I'm like, okay, so what was that? But that would be fun to do. And, just started having this vision in my own mind, like it would be pretty cool to interview Trevor Blake based on what I read in his book. It would be really, really cool. Of course, you guys know I've interviewed him a bazillion times since I had that thought, that idea, that imagery kind of flashed through my mind. So for sure, and I started writing about it. I have interviewed Trevor Blake and other authors on the amazing life-changing practices. And, I started writing about that, and that has completely manifested. I didn't share this part with Trevor. I don't even know if I shared that last one with Trevor, but so I'm in my quiet time one morning, and sitting still. I sit in the lotus position because I don't know, I just enjoy that. So I'm sitting still in my lotus position, quiet time, and all of a sudden I get this strong impression, Trevor Blake, to the point where I'm sitting in my lotus position quietly, and I went, what was that? And it wasn't an audible sound. It was just this loud impression in the stillness of the early morning. And so I reclosed my eyes, and I went back into my quiet time, and again, Trevor Blake! And I laugh now because, right after my quiet time, I text my husband. I'm like, I had this really weird experience. I'm sitting in my quiet time. It was completely still, and I heard, Trevor Blake's name being yelled into the silence, if that makes any sense at all. And he goes back and he goes, no, that makes no sense at all, And I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know if it meant I was supposed to do anything with Trevor. I had not connected with Trevor at all at that point in time. And I'm like, well, I don't know what this means. Whatever is screaming this to me, could you scream a little bit more data so I could figure out, what's going on here? And I went out in the park for my walk because, I started at that time experiencing, really feeling nature and feeling it really profoundly. And I remember walking out in nature going, do you have an answer for me for like why this happened this morning? Didn't hear anything. And then I was going out to lunch with a friend of mine that day, and I'm in the mirror doing my hair, you know, doing my curly thing, you know, and all of a sudden, kaboom, moment of insight hits, right? And Trevor's right when he talks about moments of insight being, it's not like, oh, that's a really great idea. It's more like boom, boom, with all the fixings, like a blueprint for everything you should do. And all of a sudden, I drop everything, I run out the bathroom, I grab a notepad, and I'm writing all these things that it's just coming to my brain. I have no idea why, how, nothing. So I'm writing all this down, and I get done writing it, and I'm like, holy what is? And I was a little scared of what it was in the beginning because I didn't know Trevor. Trevor didn't know me. I think at that point in time, I had just written him a thank you note saying, your book has really touched my life. Thank you. And that was it. And now I'm getting the calling to ask him if I could do this video series on the book, 3 Simple Steps. And I have like everything like lined out and just described it and just shared everything. And that Friday, I had written Trevor an email. I remember it vividly because the title of the email was A Moment of Insight with Your Name on it. That was the title of the email. And it's one of those things where you like, and this is the thing with moments of insight. When a moment of insight strikes you, it's like, it's beyond the calling. It's like, I have to do this. It's like, it is calling my name, so I have to do this, you know? And so when I wrote the email to Trevor, that's what I was feeling like. I have to tell him about this. I have to tell him. And it didn't even cross my mind. You know, I wasn't intimidated in any way. I wasn't feeling like, geez, will he think, you know, whatever. I just wrote it up in that same sense of passion and that sense of knowing that I have to get this done. I have to get this out. I have to tell him. And so I wrote him this email and hit send and left for the weekend. I'm not in my office on the weekend, and I don't check email on the weekend. It's a commitment I made to myself. And so I didn't go back into the office again until Monday around noon, right? But I tell you true, the entire weekend I'm like, what did I do? I'm like, this man's probably thinking, who is this woman coming out of the blue telling me what I ought to be doing with the content in my book, which was really just doing this video series and a bunch of other things, right? So, and some ideas that I had and things like that. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe. And I think in the email I said, I won't take no for an answer. Where did that come from? I don't know. It's that strong sense of knowing, you know? And then you feel that stuff afterwards. It was like, oh God, what the heck did I do? You know? And, but underneath all of that, what the heck did I do? Underneath all of that was still that strong sense of knowing, like, well, even if this blows up in my face, I had to do it. And I think that's what a moment of insight is. When it hits you so strongly, it comes with a crazy strong sense of knowing. You just feel it, you know? And there's no turning back at that point. So on Monday when I come into the office, I get the email back from Trevor. I click on it, and he says, let's do a Skype session on Tuesday. I was blown away. Okay, so here's this guy who's I've never met before, wrote this book, you know, and now I ended up having a 90-minute Skype session with Trevor. And it was just amazing to have met him. And it was one of those things, though, where when it happened, like right after we disconnected from the Skype, it was like deja vu, right? It's kind of like, I did this before. And I realized when I was reading the book and had that flash of a movie in my mind, because I say to my husband, I get that sometimes. It's like I just get this flash of something about to happen or something that is going to happen in the future. Don't ask me. I don't claim to be anything. I'm just sharing with you what my experience has been. After I hung up, Trevor and I disconnected from that first Skype meeting that we had. I was like, I've been here before. I did this before. And I realized it was when I was reading the book, having the vision, that I would be interviewing Trevor, that I would be face to face in video interviewing him and talking to him. And there it happened, right? And you guys know we've done a few things since then. So that's certainly one manifestation of writing things, writing intentions down and having it come to pass. This video series, of course, is that. It's an intention that has come to pass. Wealthwithoutgoalsetting.com. That, I was in my car and had been going through this whole spiritual renewal in my life, awakening, I don't even know what to call it. But if you go to wealthwithoutgoalsetting.com, my video you can get for free. But that whole experience for me was very surreal, you know. I was in my car and I was just going through this whole awakening where I didn't want to do life the way I had been doing it. And I didn't want to do business the way I had been doing it. I wanted to tap into that internal compass inside of me, the Spirit of God inside of me, the creative power that is built within me, the spirit within me. I wanted to live life that way. I wanted to do business that way. I wanted to coach people that way. But I didn't know how. I knew I couldn't coach people the way I used to. I knew I couldn't do business the way that I used to. But I didn't know how to do it the new way. That intuitive sense, that sense of knowing, all that stuff, I didn't know how to do it. And so I'm driving in my car having this thought that I don't know how to do it. And all of a sudden, kaboom, the idea shot through my brain. Like, interview everybody who lives this way, because there are masses of other people who are just like you, just where you are. They want to know too. Turned my car around, drove straight home. Within 20 minutes of that idea popping in my mind, hopped onto this Facebook group that I'd been in for six and seven figure entrepreneurs, and I'm posting this thing, and I'm literally downloading everything that came to my mind, right in that moment. I'm like, I am doing an interview series for people who create wealth without goal setting. Anyone making six figures who don't subscribe to rigid goal setting, and you want to be interviewed and you're very successful. And I'm like laying it all out. Everything that came to me in that moment of insight, I just wrote it all out. Hit send. Boom. By the end of that day, I think I had like 5 people lined up to be interviewed already. And you guys know, if you go to wealthwithoutgoalsetting.com, it's a total of 11 people. The other thing that happened when I got that idea, like right after I posted that Facebook message, I got that flash again. It's like, for me, it's like a mini movie just flashes through my mind, and I see what's going to happen and how it's going to happen. It was very quick, yet detailed, and I'm not quite sure how to, and I don't know what it is, guys. I don't know what it is. I'm just telling you what I experienced. And so I had this flash of this movie that kind of showed me how it would play out. Like, I had this vision of how the whole wealthwithoutgoalsetting.com video series would play out. And so at the very first day that I released the videos, the exact same thing that I saw in the movie was playing out. I literally was sitting in front of my computer, because one of the things I had been writing about in my intentions is that lives across all continents will be touched. And people will experience a profound shift and change in their lives, right? And if you go to wealthwithoutgoalsetting.com, just watch the comments that people sent me. That's just like a trickle of it, right? And I was sitting in front of my computer. This is like surreal. Sitting in front of my computer, and I'm watching. This is the first day, because it was a 2-day event, online event. The first day was toward the end of the day, and I'm watching email after email after email after email, just this steady flow of emails coming in from viewers who watched that series. People saying they were crying, they were in tears, they had never seen anything like it. People were saying, I blocked out 2 days to watch this. I've never done anything like that in my life before. It was just, I literally sat in front of my computer with tears streaming down my face and getting goosebumps every time I read an email, because it was a complete manifestation of what I had envisioned. It was like, I mean, people all over the world were touched by this video series, and in ways that I never had even anticipated. And it was just such a visceral reminder that moments of insight manifested are 10 times better than what you had ever envisioned, you know? And it was just an amazing, amazing manifestation of a written intention, you know? Just amazing, just amazing. So that was another example of writing intentions and having it come to pass. I've also had like small things come to pass, you know, like small material things that I had written about. The funny thing with those is that you write about them, then they happen and they're so small you forget. And I remember like writing about an intention and realizing, oh wait, I already have that. You know, like it happened, you know? Okay, one more example of how written intention came to pass. My husband and I have this amazing, awesome relationship. Met him 8 years ago, married him almost 4 years ago now. Our anniversary is April 6th. And we have always had an amazing marital relationship. He's in the military and gone a lot. And I say to people, I have a honeymoon every single month, because whenever he comes home, it's like a honeymoon. You know, I said, well, we might have to be in therapy when we actually live together the whole time, because I feel like I have this amazing honeymoon every single month. But I've stopped saying that, though. I've started saying that we're going to have an amazing relationship when he does retire from the military and we're living together. We have always had a great relationship. So when I wrote about us in our intentions, I started writing for whatever reason. Now, we have gone on vacations together. We've had, you know, good trips and everything. But I suddenly started writing, we're going to have amazing romantic getaways. Or I don't know why I wrote it that way, but I just kind of wrote it that way. My husband and I, we take these amazing romantic getaways to luxurious accommodations or whatever. I'm just writing, right? And in January of this year, completely unplanned, totally, completely unplanned, my husband and I went on a romantic getaway together. And it was different than any trip we have ever taken together. Completely different. It was so romantic. I can't even begin to describe how amazingly off the charts romantic this was. And I remember being in the car with him on the way to this luxurious accommodations and this trip we had planned together. And we were holding hands. He was driving, and we were holding hands in the front seat of the car. And I looked at him and I said, "How did our relationship get so off the charts romantic?" You know, and I, you know, he and I know that we've always had a great relationship, but and he said to me, "Because you were writing about it in your intentions." And I said, "You know, you're probably right. That's probably true." And it was just, that trip in January of this year, we had an amazing relationship, but I tell you truth, it took our relationship up 10 notches. And I don't even know why. I didn't even know our relationship could get that much better, you know, because we have an amazing relationship. We've always had an amazing relationship, but it was deepened. And we began having even more profound spiritual conversations with each other. And just, we connected at such a deep, 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 deep level. And I really do believe that part of it had to do with that amazing romantic getaway that we went on. It was just perfect. And gave me such amazing memories that now I could like recall what happened on that romantic trip, and I could just smile. I mean, but it, you know, it's like, it's just been an amazing, amazing experience. So that was out of the blue manifestation of intentions for me that I wasn't really even looking for. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know, I just wasn't really looking for that, and it just sort of happened. So that's my experience with moments of insight and the manifestation of written intentions. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Okay, so the other question is, have I been on the winding staircase during my implementation of 3 Simple Steps? Heck yeah. You know, they have not been terrible disappointments in any way, really. But yeah, I've been on the winding staircase a little bit. Even this video series, you know, I got the idea for this video series at the same time that I got the idea, the moment of insight, for doing the wealthwithoutgoalsetting.com video series. And it was a lot of work, and it still is a lot of work. A 1-hour video takes anywhere from 3 to 4 hours to edit. Okay? I didn't quite anticipate that. The wealthwithoutgoalsetting.com video series, it consumed my time. It just, you know, it's booking the interviews, actually doing the interviews, then editing the interviews, and I wanted to do it all myself, you know, because, I don't know, it was my baby. I wanted to do it all myself, you know. Putting all the voiceovers and everything together and all that, it takes a long time, and I thought that I would quickly turn around these videos in the 3 Simple Steps video series, and then, you know, blindsided by the fact that I'm running a business full-time, right, and doing all these other things, and then this other project, wealthwithoutgoalsetting.com video series, and then the 3 Simple Steps video series. I think I grossly underestimated how much time it would take. So for me, that was a little bit of a winding staircase. You know, it's like, I thought I would just be video, knock it out, share it, you know. It takes a while. And because it takes a really long time to edit them, you know, I've had some challenges with where to fit them in, you know, and where to fit in the time to do it. But the cool thing about the length of time that it takes to edit the videos, and maybe my mind just seeing the positive stuff and everything now, but every time during the editorial process, I am re-inspired by the stories of the people that I'm producing the video for. You know what I mean? So I'm re-inspired by their stories. So even though it's taken a really long time to edit and get them out, I'm loving every minute of it. You know, so it doesn't. So this is why I say it doesn't feel much like a tremendous winding staircase. You know what I mean? There are a couple of videos right now that I did interviews through Google Hangouts, right? And I cannot download the darn things. I cannot download them. And I've been, you know, I back off and go, okay, so I'll take a couple of days and try to download it again. And I'm having trouble downloading it. Winding staircase. So there are alternatives for me downloading it. So I'm trying to avoid those alternatives and see if it'll all work out. So yeah, there've been some snags along the way. Another snag, to be completely transparent, I thought, you know, there's hundreds of people writing to Trevor about how amazing 3 Simple Steps have been in their lives. Small things, large positive experiences, significant positive experiences, small positive experiences. They've all just been sharing how awesome 3 Simple Steps have been for them. And I thought that we'd get hundreds of people wanting to be interviewed. That didn't quite turn out. Not yet, anyway. I'm hoping that we'll still have more and more people who have a desire to share their stories. But I honestly thought that people would be as excited as I am to go, yes, me! I want to share my story, you know. I thought that we'd have large numbers of people waiting to share their story. I discovered that a lot of people are camera shy. They're not like me. Nobody wants, not nobody, but sometimes people don't want to be on video, which is fine. I'm totally flexible. I could talk to people over the phone and turn it into a video, as you've seen me do. But some of you are watching this right now. I'd love to talk to you. I'd love to share your story. I'd love to spread the word. I think that's my passion, is that I really just want to spread the word, And so that's been a little bit of a winding staircase. There are probably 5 people right now that said they want to be interviewed, and I emailed them, they emailed me back, I emailed them, they emailed me back, something came up again, and so, and I still haven't talked to them, even though they said they want to share their story. So all of that has been a winding staircase. But the cool thing about a moment of insight is when the winding staircase hits, all you have to do is go back to that moment that you experienced, that had that visceral experience of that idea. And the winding staircase seems like this small in comparison to the passion you have for doing what you want to do. And so that's the cool thing about moments of insight. It's that it comes with that strong sense of knowing. And you have only to revisit that moment to re-experience that strong sense of knowing that keeps you on the path of realizing that dream, So yes, I've had experiences of being on the winding staircase, but when you are passionate about doing something, the winding staircase almost seems somewhat diffused. It doesn't phase you much at all. And my experience now with just that deep level of the peace that passes all understanding, that coupled with that, it's like whatever. It's like I'm gonna keep on the path anyway. You know what I mean? So that's been my experience with the winding staircase. So the last question I'll answer here is, what recommendations do I have for people who are considering reading 3 Simple Steps or considering implementing 3 Simple Steps? I have to confess to you that when I just encountered 3 Simple Steps, I would say that I was rather dogmatic about it. And Trevor says, let your life be an example. Don't beat people over the head or buy them the book. You know what I mean? But I was very dogmatic about it. I was like, you got to read the book. You got to read the book. Oh my gosh, this has changed my life. You got to read the book, And I realized that you cannot be, even as an implementer of 3 Simple Steps, you cannot be dogmatic about it. Because dogma is inherently a negative experience. You know what I mean? For me, and I got caught up in this a little bit too, your commitment cannot be coupled with fear. Here's what I mean by that. If you're going to follow 3 Simple Steps, then yes, make a commitment and be disciplined about following 3 Simple Steps, but be very careful about having fear come into that, where you're saying, oh my gosh, I didn't write my intentions, therefore I wouldn't achieve my dreams. Oh my gosh, I didn't do my quiet time. Oh my gosh, my life will be miserable. You know what I mean? So you have to be aware of if being imperfect in the implementation of 3 Simple Steps is causing fear to emerge for you, because then you're not in the right place. You know what I mean? And so for me, dogma always comes with some level of fear, because it's a rule. And if you break the rule, bad things are going to happen. You know what I mean? I have seen people create amazing things in their life, and they've never read 3 Simple Steps. You know what I mean? But they're following a similar process. Their quiet time is meditation. Their visioning is a vision board. Or a vision movie, or so that their intention writing kind of takes a visual format. Their mentality is a lot of spiritual stuff. You know what I mean? So I've seen people create amazing success, and they've never even heard about the book 3 Simple Steps. So I have fully embraced that 3 Simple Steps is a tool for anyone who wants to use it, And I don't feel like I have to beat people over the head to go get the book. I will share my experience, and I will share what has happened in my life as a result, but I don't feel like I have to be dogmatic about telling people you got to read the book and you got to do all the, if you're going to do it, for goodness sakes, be committed. You know what I mean? Drop your story. Everybody wants to hold on to their story of not having enough time to do quiet time. I don't have enough time to write my intentions. Oh gosh, you don't know, the people around me are so negative. I don't know if I could do mentality control. You know what I mean? It's like, do you want a different life, or do you want to hold on to your story? You know what I mean? So for me, if you're gonna do it, and if you want to implement 3 simple steps, go all out. Be committed and drop the story. You know what I mean? So so that's my advice for anyone that wants to do it. If you really want to do it, be committed to doing it. If you found another process that resonates even more with you, do that and be committed to that. But whatever it is you choose to do, be committed to doing it full out. No excuses, right? People are like, I'm too busy, I can't do quiet time. That's just an excuse. I'm busy too. I'm a single mom most of the time. I call myself a married single mom because my husband's in the military most of the time. I'm running a business full time. I have an 11-year-old at home. My 19-year-old just got a job and is taken off. So, so all of those things I can find, and trust me, if I didn't read that discipline part of Trevor's book, trust me when I tell you, I'd probably be having a lot of stories and excuses about why I couldn't do it. I really would. But I made a decision and I made a commitment to myself. And for me, it's important to live up to the commitment that I made. So my advice is, if you choose to do it full out and be 100% committed to the 3 very simple steps. It's very, very simple. So I know I've gone on and on forever about my story, but I didn't want to not share some of the experiences that I've had. So I know this has been lengthy, but I hope it has been helpful. Bye, everyone, and you'll see me again in another 3 Simple Steps interview shortly. Bye for now.
Thank you for joining us for another interview in the Stories from 3simplesteps.com series. If you feel this story would inspire and encourage someone you know, we invite you to send them to storiesfrom3simplesteps.com. If you are implementing 3 Simple Steps and you feel inspired to share your experience, we would love to interview you and to have your experience inspire others. Simply go to storiesfrom3simplesteps.com and click the button to share your story.